there. Good evening and welcome to Copperfield's Books virtual event with Rebekkah LaDyne. My name is Jamie Madsen and I'm the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Copperfield's Books and will also be your host for the evening. Copperfield's Books has been committed to literature, education, and creating community together since our founding in 1981. As COVID-19 continues to endanger the future of indie bookstores like us, I just wanted to take a moment and thank all of you for your continued support, both online and in store. I know this is a rough time for everyone, and the support of locals like you allows us to keep providing these free programs, and we are very grateful. So thank you for that. And one last thing, all 9 of our stores are currently open for both inside service and curbside pickup every day from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So just a couple of housekeeping items before I introduce tonight's author. We will be using the chat box to provide links to view upcoming Copperfield's events, links to purchase Rebekkah's latest title, as well as a 10% discount code for use on our website, and we'll also include my contact details for post-event information. Additionally, the Q&A box will be your go-to tonight with any questions or comments for the author. The format will feature anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes of speaking and will then be followed by a live Q&A. We will try to get to as many of your questions as we can. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you will see an icon that says Q&A. Please submit your questions here rather than replying to my posts in the chat box. Thank you for that. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce tonight's author, Rebekkah LaDyne. Rebekkah has spent 25 years in the field of embodied well-being. After working in therapeutic mindfulness for 15 years, she studied mind-body medicine at Saybrook University and conducted clinical research in somatic self-regulation. Based on her extensive research in mind-body medicine, her comprehensive training with SEI, and her decades of professional experience, she authored the Mind-Body Stress Reset. As a member of the U.S. Association for Body Psychotherapy, a researcher, mind-body skills educator, and author, Rebekkah has supported thousands of people in increasing their mind-body wellness. Rebekkah works with all forms of trauma and dysregulation and is particularly skilled with anxiety, overwhelm, persistent high activation, and developmental trauma. Before working as an SEP, she spent 10 years as the owner, director, and lead teacher for a large wellness center, and then facilitated groups at world-renowned Spirit Rock Meditation Center, while also traveling to worldwide destinations, teaching workshops and retreats. In addition to her book, she has recorded several wellness CDs, appears on the radio and YouTube, and offers workshops internationally. She is in the private practice in the San Francisco Bay Area and meets with clients online from all over the globe. She lives with her husband and 2 daughters and a puppy dog. I will be including her website where she can be found, which is RebekkahLaDyne.com. So Rebekkah is with us tonight to discuss her book, The Mind-Body Stress Reset: Somatic Practices to Reduce Overwhelm and Increase Well-Being. And I'm so excited to have you here with us tonight. This topic is so timely with all of our quarantines and now shelter from the fires, and we're just very lucky to have this opportunity. So thanks so much, Rebekkah. I'm pleased to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jamie. That's great. I appreciate it. I appreciate being able to be here. And I also know that we are facing such a strange time here in Northern California. Many of you are listening from homes that are blanketed in smoke and have been without sunlight, direct sunlight, for the last couple of days. And that's just on top of the fact that we are all living through a global pandemic. We've been sheltering, some of us for 6 months, some of us for 5 or 4 months. Some people's children are going back to school. Some people's children are learning from home online. There's huge social and political unrest and injustices that are being faced, which is important, but also stressful. So, of course, this is just the top of the list. We have more, each of us, to add. And I think it just goes without saying that these are hard times. In times like these, we all need tools to help us recover from stress. The experience is that our human body-brain system is already very adept, very skilled at getting into stress, so to speak. We don't need any coaching or assistance to become stressed. The work really is about how to recover from that stress, how to come back out of that stress once we're in it. And that's what the mind-body stress reset is really all about. How can we help ourselves come back out of stress? Often people are asking, why am I so easily moved into stress? Why does my body-mind system seem to be so good at this? So I thought I would answer that question just with a short excerpt from the book before I talk more about stress and our body-brain system. Is it all me, or did I inherit some of this? There is an evolutionary basis for all of this stress. I fondly say that we are the descendants of the most hypervigilant, anxious, and stressed humans there ever were. Back in prehistoric times, the humans who were chilling out and watching a beautiful sunset instead of committedly or neurotically scanning for danger were not eating dinner later, they were dinner later. Our ancient ancestors, the ones who survived anyway, had to be incredibly aware of possible threats, always on the lookout for what was coming next, and always rehearsing how to survive the bad stuff that was surely just up ahead. Wink, wink. Of course, the hypervigilant would assume that ruin was imminent. They also must have spent a lot of time rehashing the bad stuff that had just happened so as to avoid it next time. This genetic inheritance makes for an extremely adept survival brain, which is very good at stress reactivity. After all, we've been rehearsing and rehashing our stress reactions for thousands upon thousands of years. So we did inherit this. This is the disposition of our primitive brain, or our stress brain, as we sometimes refer to. And I want to say that we're really clear, I think, at this day and age in the wellness and body-brain literature that our mind is constantly unconsciously scanning for danger, and that we, if we feel a little stress, are more likely to pick up on cues in the environment that affirm that suspicion of danger, that are concerning, so to speak. But what isn't as widely discussed, and in my opinion and in the book made very clear, is that our body is doing this all the time as well. Our bodies are actually scanning for the felt experience of danger or lack of safety. Our bodies are picking up on cues in the environment as to whether it's okay for us to relax, let go of some of that muscle tension, whether we can unclench the stomach, breathe more fully, or whether we need to keep our heart rate up and at the ready because something might be lurking or someone might not be trustworthy. So it's really important to understand that it's not just a cognitive disposition, this stress that we carry. It's a physical disposition. We feel our feelings. Stress is something that we know in our bones, not just in our brains. So in order to address stress and really help ourselves recover from it, we cannot simply think our way out of it. That's the whole premise of the mind-body stress reset, is that we need to, sure, use our brain, use our mind, but also feel our way out of it. Also really help our body be able to access the known experience of recovery from stress, of resilience. So that's what I discuss in the book, is how we can use the tools outlined therein to help our body not just recognize mentally how we can unburden ourselves from stress, but to know it physically, to feel it and live it and breathe it. So when we are living in times where stress reactivity, both body and mind, is common, our body creates what I call in the book stress imprints. And these imprints are like maps that our body brain system responds to and kind of turns to for quick, let's do this guidance when we think something questionable or something threatening is about to happen. These imprints become our fallback or our go-to, even when they're not needed. So if I have been going into stress reactivity often, my imprints are going to be even more deep, and it's going to be even easier for my body brain system to go back into those, even when what I'm facing isn't that difficult. So I might have needed to use my stress imprint if I was, for example, many of us have been packing our emergency bags and getting all of our most valuable possessions in our cars and driving our car in backwards into our driveways or parking spots so we can get out quickly in the middle of the night if we need to. That kind of reactivity, I think, is warranted. We are wise to think, how much readiness do I need right now? What's the sky telling me? What's the weather system? What's the fire department reporting? But then at the end of that, Jamie and I were just talking about this before we started the call tonight. At the end of that period, does my brain and my body skillfully and successfully de-escalate from that? Can I let myself feel and let myself know, okay, the fire smoke is still in the air, but it is no longer close enough to where I live to get to my house. Can I let myself decompress enough to get a good night's sleep, as Jamie was just telling me she was unable to get a couple of nights ago? Can I let my body system understand the big stressor has passed? I don't need to respond with such intensity for this next one. So then, the next thing that happens is that I'm on my way to the grocery store for my weekly trip, because I think we're all avoiding it as much as possible. And the line is 20 people long. And yes, that is stressful, but do I need the same amount of readiness to wait in a line of 20 people at the grocery store as I needed when I was packing my emergency bag and backing my car in backwards? So this is what's happening in our body system. Pre-pandemic, this is happening. Pre-fire season, this is happening. But our system can become so habituated to extreme reactivity that we use this all systems go response, even when all we really need is just a little bit of alertness to figure out how should I most efficiently and skillfully wait in this line of 20 people as I'm waiting to check out at the store. Okay, so the stress imprints become a body habit. And when we have these body habits, our body is more likely to respond to both big and littler stress with the same amount of robust reactivity. This is a problem for us because when we move into stress response, many systems in our body shift to facilitate a really pronounced readiness. The blood is going to move to my large muscles so I can flee if I need to, run, or I can fight if I need to, defend. And it's going to leave my central system so that my digestion might be suffering, which of course isn't as important if I'm running from a fire, for example, that I'm digesting my pasta. But it's really important when I'm not running from a fire, and I could end up with chronic digestive difficulty because I keep bringing this unneeded robust stress response to medium or even small stressors. When this becomes such an ingrained habit, we can have a very well-worn mental and physical pathway. In the book, I call this something like the stress autobahn. And it's so well paved and it's such a wide laned road that our body-mind system is very inclined to use it, even when it's not the best choice for us. So for example, I could be struggling with needing to find a way to get to the post office, for example, and my body-brain system moves onto the stress autobahn. And again, it's all systems go. it's as if the stress Audubon is saying, oh, there's some readiness needed here, even just a little. Well, come on down. Here's this 5-lane, well-paved pathway of reactivity that we have ready for you. What I talk about in the book is using skills to grow our resilience pathways. Our stress pathways are glossy, shiny, easy to get onto Audubons. How can we make our resilience pathways more readily available also? For many of us, our resilience pathways are less utilized. And in the book, I liken them to something like a rocky hiking path that you can get down, but you have to navigate over some boulders and you have to walk over some fallen trees. They're harder to use and they're less paved or less smooth because we are on them less often. I joke in the book, and I want to joke now, that this is not a preference for industrialized over natural environments. This is just a metaphor for how it is that our body system habituates to choosing familiar, easy to get to stress reaction, or less familiar, harder to get to, but so much better for us, resilience pathway. And what I'm talking about in the book is that our resilience pathway needs our body and our brain in order to get to it. We can't just think our way there. So I've been talking about stress for a while, and I want to see if we can play around together with just a few of the simplest tools that I talk about in the book and see if any of us can experience some resilience. So after I've been using all of these examples, some of them might be hypothetical for you and some of them might be very personal. You might have had a response when I was describing fire preparedness. You might have had a response when I was describing getting to the post office or waiting in a line of 20 people at the grocery store. You might also just take note of whatever stressors that you yourself are facing and notice how you feel in your body for just a moment. Maybe this is easy for you and maybe it isn't. You don't need to start off knowing how to sense your body. It's something that you can work toward. But whatever it is that you do notice, how's your breathing right now? How's your muscle tension or lack thereof? How does your stomach or chest area feel? Tight or relaxed or neutral? And now let's see if we can apply a couple tools and create what might be a subtle shift or maybe a more pronounced shift into and toward resilience. So begin by focusing your next few breaths with long exhales intended. Long full breaths out. And just see how that feels. See how that lands. After your long breath out, let your body relax and allow the next full breath to come in on its own. And just notice how that is. From here, see if you can shift your attention to the experience of your body sitting. If you're not sitting, the experience of your body standing or lying down. Notice where your body makes contact with the surface underneath you, whatever that is. And see if it's possible to feel your body releasing into that surface, almost letting gravity help to root you where you are. And just notice how that feels. Positive, negative, neutral, not sure. All of the above is fine. Next, just tip your head over to one side. Doesn't matter which. It's a little tip, a little stretch. Notice how the stretch feels. Track your body, your breath. Gently bring your head back up center and tip it over to the other side. Maybe your breath wants to increase naturally. Allow that. Maybe you feel gravity helping to root you all on its own. Allow that. Maybe you don't feel any of those shifts. That's fine too. Just notice what is here. Bring your head back up. And then the last we'll add to this set of practices is just take a look around and see if you can let your eyes recognize anything in your environment that's okay or even enjoyable to let your eyes rest on. I was talking earlier about how our mind can unconsciously or automatically scan for danger, and that has an impact on our body. Our body is also scanning. Right here, we're intentionally doing the opposite. We're scanning with both brain and body for safety. We're scanning for what's okay. And as you let your eyes rest on something, it doesn't have to be amazing, just something that feels like it's even in the category of neutral. Notice how that feels. So we did a few practices really briefly, and I want to ask Jamie first if she can tell me what she noticed in her body as we practiced. And then I want to ask any of you that can access your chat to share what you noticed in your body as you went through that series of practices together. We're going from our awareness of our stress to a few resilience practices. What did that feel like for you? How was that, Jamie? Sorry, I caught you off guard.
Oh, no. That was lovely. It was like at the same time liberating as much as it was just like letting my body totally relax.
Nice.
It's so nice when you actually think about the back of my thighs on the seat, or think about my back against the chair, and think about how those things feel, and looking at a place for safety. I enjoyed it very much.
Oh, good. Yes. So what you describe is very much on par with what the research participants that I conducted my study with were describing, that they could feel these things that they don't normally pay attention to, and they became aware of how it shifted their body. Over the 6-week study, they became aware of how they could create new imprints because they repeatedly attended to those particular tools and others. And they were able to feel, I don't usually feel my environment and what's safe in it. And now that I've created this habit, it's something that my body and brain has greater access to. Or I don't usually take a moment to focus on complete exhales and then relaxing and allowing a full inhale. And now that I have, my breath is functioning in a deeper, more rhythmic and soothing way than it was before. So I was so curious about these tools. I'm not seeing so much in the chat, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, I'll remind them.
Don't feel pressured. Yeah. So I was so curious about these tools that I read every research study I could get my hands on that used each of the tools that I bring to our attention in the book. And then I wanted to conduct my own research. I wanted to know for myself through firsthand experience how it works with groups. And it was incredible. What happened was each member of the group submitted a self-report about their anxiety and stress symptoms before the protocol and after. And all of them experienced improved symptoms. All of them experienced stress relief, anxiety relief. And it's wonderful to hear these self-reports, but what was even more scientifically, I guess you could say, of note, was that I collected their cortisol through their saliva at the very beginning of the intervention, so right at the first meeting that I had with them, and then at the end of the final class that we had together. And all of them had cortisol reduction. So what that shows is that not only did they mentally feel better and were able to describe through their questionnaires, yeah, feeling better in this way and this way and this way, but physically their bodies changed as a result of the practices that the mind-body stress reset shares. So that's what's so remarkable here, is that it's not just that cognitively we're changing our outlook, but we're physically changing how much stress hormone we're secreting in our body, which changes the way our whole body functions. Okay. So how do we change these habits? How can we do this? Well, it's not instantaneous. So please be prepared to be patient with yourself. Be prepared to do the work of little by little developing those resilience pathways, little by little turning those boulder-studded, tree-fallen hiking trails into wider paths. They can still be in nature if that's what you prefer, but they'll be wider and easier for your body and brain to find. I tell a story in the book that I want to just end this section of the talk with, about one of my daughters and her process of moving from a pedal brake bike to a handbrake bike. Maybe you taught a young person in your life how to do this. Maybe you yourself vaguely remember your own transition from pedal brakes to handbrakes. This is how it went for her. Her body had a memory, a very specific, well-honed memory. 2 years on a pedal brake bike, whenever she wanted to slow down, she pushed her heel and the bike would reliably slow to a gradual stop. When we transitioned to a handbrake bike, she would desire to slow. So there was a cue in her body, and her body would take the route it was used to, push on her heel, but there were no brakes there. So her feet would spin in a circle backward and her eyes would widen and she would become quite worried. And I would run next to her and say, squeeze your hands, squeeze your hands. And the wheels of her brain, no pun intended, would turn and she would squeeze and her bike would stop. We had to go through this over and over again to create a new body memory. She knew intellectually that her brakes were now on her hands, but it wasn't about knowing the idea that the brakes were somewhere else that was going to be effective for her. It was feeling, this is how my body now accesses slowing down. That was effective for her. So after running next to her, squeeze with your hands, squeeze with your hands, I abbreviated it to squeeze hands, and then finally just hands, hands, and then finally nothing, because it was in her body and she would cruise down the road, desire to stop. She didn't have to tell herself, now I'm on a handbrake bike and I'm going to gently squeeze my hands so that my bike comes to a full and complete stop. She didn't do any of those things. She just felt, this is the new way in which I safely slow my bike down. That's exactly what we can do with the mind-body stress reset. We can at first coach ourselves through it. Then we can give ourselves little cues, maybe cognitive cues, maybe a visual cue, maybe a somatic cue. And all of those can deepen the embodied memory. And then little by little, it will become something that our body just knows. So again, it is with patience, because we do have to coach ourselves initially, and then we do have to abbreviate that and remind ourselves when we forget occasionally. And then there comes the time that our body just remembers, this is how I do it. This is what resilience is. We know how to automatically, unconsciously, without any coaching, get into stress. And we can teach ourselves how to, over time, automatically get back out. So that's the motivation for why I wanted to write the Mind Body Stress Reset. Because let me tell you, this isn't theoretical for me. I lived this. I write a whole section in the book about my own journey, which I won't go into here, but I lived through extreme stress, and all the tools that I had before, the yoga tools, the meditation tools, the visiting talk therapists tools, they weren't working, and I needed something else. And it was an embodied approach that also uses the mind, but focuses deeply on the body, that finally got me out of prolonged and painful and extreme habitual stress reactivity. And I think it can do the same for you. Okay, thanks.
That was fantastic.
Thanks,
Thank
Jamie.
you so much, Rebekah. I just
Pleasure.
really, really enjoyed it. And we have quite a few questions.
Great.
I just wanted to make sure there were a couple people who answered about the experience.
Oh, good.
Saying, Robin says it was extremely relaxing almost immediately. I'm going to put these steps on Post-it so I have them in front of me.
Great, Robin. I love hearing that.
Yeah, and Michelle said, the relaxation skills calmed my body internally, especially looking at something safe. So thank you everyone for your feedback.
Oh, I love it. I love that you wrote in and that we can actually feel as though we're almost together, like as if
Right.
we're sort of not just communicating via computer. Thank you for writing in. And I'm
Or
really
like we can picture someone in their office or on their couch looking at someone or something.
there.
Yeah.
Good. Yes, I'm happy. I'm happy for you, and thanks for writing in.
So I know this is, you probably answered it with patience and whatnot, but what do you think is the most important factor for someone looking to harness this mind-body connection and well-being?
Okay, that's a great question. So we are used to using our brains to identify what's happening in us and outside of us. We're not trying to turn that off. Excuse me, but what we do need to do is continually return to and refer to, and what does that feel like? So, for example, I could use some breathing practices and some part of my brain might notice, oh, my body feels calmer, and off I go on to the next thing. What we can do to deeply imprint our system is to pause and take notice. How am I feeling now? How is this different from how I felt before? Noticing the change and really letting our body take in the experience of the change communicates so much more deeply to our brain. It deepens those neuronal connections, but it also speaks the language of the nervous system. The language of the nervous system is sensation. Our nervous system, which is our felt sense of okay or not okay, doesn't respond to a lot of ba, 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 ba. The brain loves that endlessly, ceaselessly, but our body needs to feel it. So I think what I can say to that simply is keep referring back to how you feel, to the sensations in your body. And if that doesn't come naturally for you, don't worry. It's not immediate for everyone, but over time, you'll build the skills of sensing your experience.
It just sounds like such a better way to go. I mean, my head is always moving so fast, and I just, to be free of that, and still be okay would be.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that, Jamie, is that often our heads are moving fast as a management strategy. We're thinking about and trying to work our way through all the different thoughts and concerns and to-dos that are floating around for us. And our body is like, heart's beating, muscles are tense, there's a little adrenaline in the system. Our body's having a pronounced response, and our mind is trying to manage that pronounced response by like, quick, churn out some more ideas about this so that maybe this will feel better. But the thing we need to recognize is churning out more ideas about this isn't going to help us feel better. In order to feel better, we have to feel.
Huh, man.
There you have it.
Yeah, if only it were that simple. So this next,
I promise you, if you adopt the skills in the mind body stress reset, you'll feel the shifts. I promise.
oh man, I cannot wait. And actually, along one of the whole looking at something that's safe to you, I'm wondering what are some ways that imagery can be used to reset stress? Like if.
Yeah, so this is a great question. So when we are stressed, negative images are involuntarily flashing through our mind all the time. So if I am leaving my house and I'm late to where I'm heading, involuntarily my mind is going to start picturing myself getting there late. And depending on how stressed I am, I might start to imagine the people I'm going to see being a little disappointed or mad. And then I might, if I'm really stressed, imagine the fiasco that's going to ensue as a result of my lateness and their anger. All of that, those cascading images come just kind of as a series of slides or snapshots that are responding to our stress. Okay, I'm kind of pulling up memories or pulling up possibilities, hypotheticals. And what's important to note about that is that each of those images is actually inflaming or intensifying our stress reaction. So here I've got a stressed response about being late. Then involuntarily, all of these negative images start to pop up about what's going to happen and how that's going to be bad, that I am late. And then my body is going to feel more concerned, more activated, more keyed up about my lateness. So what we can do is recognize that that's an automatic response, those images, those kind of slide presentations of doom and gloom that our stress brain offers. And we can intentionally bring in some images that counter that. So I want to say this isn't about pretend, this isn't about fantasy. This is what I call the and also. So, and also, I might get there and the others might be okay with the fact that I'm a little late. And also, I might not hit every red light on my way, which is what my snapshots were telling me. And also, if they are really reactive, I might be able to handle that and meet them in my calm and de-escalate the situation a little. So I can add in images of it actually being okay, of it actually turning out better than my stress brain is trying to convince me that it might. That's one way to use images. The other way that I want to talk about is that we human beings have a incredible imagination. We are the only species that has such a vivid imagination as far as we know, scientifically speaking. And we can entertain ourselves endlessly and create and invent endlessly with our imagination, but we can also scare ourselves terribly with our imagination. So I'm sure any of us who are in the fire zone, myself for sure included, have witnessed my mind conjuring up really horrible worst case scenarios about what might happen if that fire keeps coming closer and closer to where I live. And while I'm not going to, dance tra la 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 la, everything's great, happy days are in California around the living room, I'm not going to lie to myself or pretend. I'm going to imagine the and also. And this is something that I did with the Point Reyes fire, which is really near where I live, very, very close, is I was, and also conjuring up images of the firefighters successfully controlling the fire. They would describe how they were bulldozing paths, fire breaks that the fire couldn't jump through. And also, I was enjoying just sitting back and watching the mental film of those dozers just creating these reliable fire breaks that were going to protect all of the residents within the vicinity of this fire. And also, right now, this is really important. Right now, there isn't fire here. Right now, I'm okay. There's a gray sky, there's smoke in the air, there isn't fire burning here. I can use images to see this is okay right now. I do want to say one more thing about images. There's so much in the book about it, and it's such a powerful tool. But we can create what is a negative feedback loop with images, as I was saying about worrying about being late and then creating negative images and then worrying more. Or we can create a positive feedback loop with images where I'm worried about being late. I create an image that soothes my system, okay? Either way, it's going to take me the amount of time it's going to take me to get there. So do I want to get there in this stress and tension and fear? Or do I want to get there with a little more neutrality and a little more resilience on board? So I can create images that help me feel like it's okay or okay enough right now, and create a positive feedback loop where my images are soothing my body. Okay.
I love that. Especially it's great too because it's like tangible. It's not like, oh, everything's going to be fine, or like rainbows and puppies and sunshine.
No
It's
way.
totally things that are capable of happening.
That's for sure. And I think the other thing that's important, I am not a rainbow sunshine puppies person. I mean, those are all fine things if they're
No,
actually
good.
happening in reality, but if they're not happening in reality, we can't pretend our way out of stress reactivity, but we can orient to right now. The thing is that the negative images are also not reality. I hate to say it,
Right.
folks, but I was really convinced that my house was burning down for about an hour. If you had said to me it's burning, I would have said I know, because I was that worked up about it and in that much fear. I needed to bring myself back from the brink, and I needed to realize it's not. The fire isn't as close as I think, as I feel it is. I need to reorient my mind to right now. It's actually not here. So I'm not telling myself the truth with my negative images. Okay. So I need to tell myself more of the truth with my positive images.
It's great. I really appreciate you sharing. And
Yeah.
Deborah kind of has a question here along those lines. Um, she's asking, what about the continued stress of long fire season and 3+ months fearing wind and fires and escaping? Her second question is, if you do the deep breathing, get relief, but then the stress comes right back, what next? So I guess they kind of go hand in hand.
Perfect question. Yes. So is this Deborah, did you say?
Deborah, yes.
Okay, great. So this is such an important question, Deborah. So we are in a stressful circumstance. We can't expect ourselves to not become stressed. As I was saying, our systems are good at it. It happens automatically, unconsciously. What we really need is the continued experience of coming back down. So I talk about it like a wave in the ocean. It comes, it crests, and it does recede. We need to track that. We need to know that is a process. When we are not following our body experience and our cognitive experience of stress reactivity, we are all too likely to key in on the worst parts of it, record and remember and rehash and rehearse those worst parts of it, and we actually tune out or don't pay attention to or miss the recovery moments of it. Because again, that's not the most important thing evolutionarily, right? I need to know where the tigers are. I don't need to, it doesn't save me if I know where they're not, so to speak. So for survival from tigers, yes, keep staring at them. But for recovery from extreme stress, do notice when they have walked away and they're not here right now. Okay, so again, I just want to give you this tool. There are more tools in the book, but begin by noticing the wave. Okay, so it begins, it intensifies, breathe with it, notice it, feel it, and then pay a lot of attention to it's de-intensifying, it's releasing, and your body recovering. So this is the same thing for the breath. Use that breath, help your body feel its experience of resilience, pay attention to the experience of resilience. And when your body goes right back to the stress autobahn, it's good at it, it's familiar, there it is again. Notice, okay, there it is. It's easier to use stress autobahn, even though it's not good for me. It's clunkier to use my resilience pathway, even though it is good for me. So I'm just going to keep, I like to think of it as a side route. I'm just going to keep building this side route onto my stress autobahn, but I'm not going to just stay there anymore like I used to. I'm going to take this detour and head on over to resilience and travel there. And then again, here I am, back on stress. Fine, no problem. Our system's good at it. Thousands of years of evolution at play here. But I'm going to take this detour again, using the breath as the example that you gave or any of the other tools in the book. Hang out in resilience for a while and then see what happens next. So this is where patience comes in. You know, let's go back to the example of my little girl transitioning from pedal brakes to hand brakes. If she had given up, you know, if she had thought, darn, I keep spinning my legs in a circle instead of slowing down when I want to, her body wouldn't have been able to develop that new embodied memory of I squeeze. It's about breathing, staying calm and knowing there is another method. I can use my hands, not my feet. This is what we have to do. There is another method. I can return to my resilience pathway again through the methods in the book. I don't have to stay in the stress route that I'm so familiar with. Okay.
That was awesome. Maybe a little bit along those lines. AB, I'm assuming that's not the actual name, but is wondering how to extend their exhale. Any suggestions?
Yeah, so I like to use the instruction to extend your exhale rather than trying to help you kind of nudge or force your diaphragm to lower and take a big inhale. If we're stressed, often our torso is tight. Our diaphragm doesn't have a lot of room. There's not a lot of softening to expand the lungs, okay? So let it be little by little. Let's not go for the whole thing all at once. Let yourself, with the next breath out, just slightly increase that breath out, slightly pull the belly in a little bit, kind of feel like you're squeezing out the lungs a little like a sponge. And then just relax and let the breath come in on its own. And the next breath, do just a little more, just a little bit of a deeper exhale. Let the belly comes in a little, the ribs tighten in a little around the lungs to empty them. And then you relax and the breath comes in. Over time, the breath rhythm can elongate and you'll be able to feel yourself comfortably. I like to think of it as building a bridge between the two. There's a relationship between it. There's a nice, easy exhale and a full, comfortable inhale. And again, a nice, easy exhale. And let me just mention something about the inhale and exhale that's significant for our stress resilience. Every time we inhale, our body naturally moves into a little bit of this readiness I've been talking about. Our heart rate increases just slightly. Our muscle tone increases just slightly. There's a little bit more alertness in the brain. Every time we exhale, the opposite happens. Heart slows just a little, body softens just a little bit more ease in the brain. We want to have a steady and reliable relationship between these two experiences. This is on a micro level, obviously. When I'm kind of like darting out of traffic, it's a macro level. But I want to be able to feel, okay, I can move into a little bit of readiness, and then my body understands there's this transition away from it into a little more ease. And then I can easily just transition into a little more alertness and slide and relax into a little more ease, okay? So that when I do have to dart into traffic or out of traffic, excuse me, I don't want to dart into traffic, I can get myself to the sidewalk and my body knows the next part of this is this relationship I've been cultivating where I move out of readiness, out of responsive reactiveness into a little more ease. And I get there and I settle, okay? So using the breath to kind of create a foundation for the nervous system is really powerful. And the breath should always be comfortable and easy. It's not a strained breath. It's not an intense or long breath. Let it be soft. Let it be relaxed. Let it be kind to yourself. And it'll come with time. Okay. Thanks for the question.
So this next one from Virginia, she says, my 21-year-old kitty companion had to be put down 2 weeks ago. I'm so sorry, Virginia. That's awful.
So sorry.
She lives alone and I live alone, and although I was prepared, I still feel a numbness. Any suggestion with handling this kind of loss in addition to everything else?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is a big one. That's a really big one. In addition to everything else, your 22-year companion. Okay, so I just want to breathe with that for a minute. It's big. It's a big experience. And you're talking about a numbness because our nervous system takes care of us in this very intelligent way when what we're experiencing is too much. Okay. And I respect that our nervous system does that. I honor it. I don't want to rush any of us to feel it all, show up for everything today. it's not always the right thing. In the book, I talk a lot about, and somatic theory in general emphasizes this concept: less is more, little by little. Okay, so I really want to encourage you, or anyone else who's experiencing this level of intensity and loss and stress, little by little. We don't want to, I use this metaphor in the book, throw ourselves in the deep end of our emotional experience or our somatic experience and just see if we can float, see if we can, keep our breath going. We don't want to drown ourselves in our experience. That's not showing up for ourselves. The way that I describe it is, we want to get in at the shallow end and dip in a foot and wade for a while, and then get out and breathe and dip in a little bit more, maybe to the knee, and then go to the side and remember, I can take a break. And in this way, a break is read a book you like, listen to a song you love, talk to a friend, look at the sky, see photographs of your beloved, your little kitty. Take in things that feel good. And then you get back into the sorrow. You let yourself feel it a little bit, and you take another break. Okay, so I just want to say, for this, respect the numbness. It's there for a reason. And let's say little by little, you're working to let yourself feel and process the loss of someone, a being that is so important to you in the midst of everything else. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're sorry, Virginia. That was a really great suggestion and advice, though. I'm sure she appreciates it. We've got 2 questions left. One's real easy, but this last one I'm very interested in. It's a little bit crazy, but an anonymous attendee is wondering, this may sound a little crazy, but what about stress addiction? How can I motivate myself to eliminate stress when I may have a slight addiction to the revving up feeling or amped up feeling that helps me get stuff done?
It's not crazy at all. That is a very important question that I hear all the time with the individual clients that I work with. There's an experience where the revved up stress mode becomes something that our body-mind system confuses with alertness, excitement, engagement, aliveness. And all of those things are wonderful. All of those things are pleasurable and life affirming. We want aliveness. We want excitement and engagement. But if excitement and engagement sends us through the roof, it's a problem for us. Our system is confusing the two. Like, is this a do or die situation, or is this a rock concert that I'm enjoying? I'm not sure. And that's a real example from a client that I worked with. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the book or not. But what I want to say is, it's so worthwhile to teach your system about the difference between the two. And it is something you can do. Not only is it worthwhile because your digestion is going to function better, you'll sleep better, your hair will be thicker, your brain will function and focus better, and on and on and on it goes. You'll have better respiratory health, on and on it goes. But it's actually a more pleasurable experience to be in aliveness, alertness, engagement than it is in stress masquerading as those things. Okay, so I want to encourage you to know that you don't have to give up the thrill, I think was the word you used, or what was the word? The excitement of it. You don't have to give that up.
Yeah, the amped up feeling.
The amped up. You don't have to give up the engagement, but the through the roof, the way too much, the, all and then burnout of the amped is something that I would love to encourage you to find a different relationship with.
Interesting. Thanks for that answer.
Mm-hmm.
Our last question is from Anita, and she's wondering, would you consider putting your book in an audiobook format?
Anita and everyone else, please write to my publishers and ask them for this.
Yeah, it does seem like it would be a great title for that.
I really want it to become an audiobook. I really appreciate your inquiry about it, and let's all say yes sometime soon. Thanks, Renita.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so, so much, Rebekah. This has been a lovely, lovely evening.
For me
Um,
as well, Jamie.
Very
Thank you.
informative. Yeah, any last things you want to, say to us before we kind of.
I just want to say that when I wrote this book, I knew that a great number of people experienced stress and anxiety and overwhelm, but none of us had any idea what was up ahead. So it is both more important right now, more than ever, that we work on our stress resilience, but it's also more important than ever that we're incredibly compassionate and understanding with ourselves, that it's going to take time. There's just too much piling up. We can only access so much resilience in the midst of all that we're facing. We're only human. So be patient with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, but do keep investing the time and energy in your stress resilience. We need it. We really, really do.
Yeah, great advice and a great topic. Thank you so much. To all of you watching, listening, I will be sending a follow-up email tomorrow that will have links to purchase. Don't forget the 10% discount code, which is reset. That is good for a week. And great to have you. Hopefully we can get you back here soon. Maybe
Great to be here. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jamie. Thanks to everyone who showed up and asked great questions and shared your experience. It was wonderful to be with you virtually. And please reach out. Let me know how you find the book. Review it. It helps folks find it. And again, thanks, Jamie. Thanks to Copperfields. Support your local bookstore.
Yeah.
And I'll see you all sometime or another when we see one another again, when that returns.
Great. Sounds great. Stay safe. Be well.
Stay safe. Take care.